How's that for a slice of fried gold?
You think this is a fucking costume? This is a way of life.
I'll be back.
Just a flesh wound. I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
Take your sticking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Well, hello, and welcome to Cinema Shock. This is the show that digs deep into your stories behind your favorite cult and genre movies. I'm one of your hosts, Gary Horn.
Hey, I'm one of your other hosts, Justin Bishop.
And I'm Todd A. Davis. I just woke up in a strange apartment with no memory of how I got here. So business as usual. Thanks for joining us as we take a midnight drive through the Hollywood Hills for the fourth film in our series, David Lynch, Between Two Worlds. Did I go too Shatner on that? I felt like I took a lot of dramatic pauses.
Can you ever go to Shatner?
Do you want me to go more Shatner?
No.
I also messed up the intro. I paused because I said it digs deep into your stories behind your favorite cult. And I'm like, whose stories then are we referring
our listeners.
to? The listeners' stories.
The listeners' stories behind them. Yep. We're not having to redo. We're already running late,
Yeah.
so we're just gonna keep it in there.
This is it. Don't get scared now.
So when David Lynch first arrived in Los Angeles in August of 1970, he was a young painter chasing the promise of film school at AFI. And he arrived at night, so he didn't see much of the city until the following morning. But then when he stepped out of his small apartment on San Vicente Boulevard, he saw a light unlike anything he'd ever known. It thrilled my soul, is what he later wrote. I believe in Catching the Big Fish.
I mean, only David Lynch, right? He shows up in 1970 and sees, quote, the light. My dude, that light is UV rays and stage 4 smog. The golden haze you're looking at right now is sunlight bouncing off particles from leaded gasoline. And he's saying, beautiful. It's so dreamy.
It was not as bad in 1970. As it might be now, right?
You may be right.
Maybe it was. I don't know, because now they have those, like, you have to get smog tests and stuff on your cars as a law. So maybe it is better now. Probably not. It's plenty smoggy now.
Yeah, but he means it. I mean, I know he's being genuine. He's obsessed with LA's light, and Catching the Big Fish, he calls it a creative jolt, which makes sense. LA's like the perfect canvas for his whole deal anyway. Beauty and menace all in the same frame. I feel like watching this movie especially and then thinking about LA, like it's like his whole thesis. It goes back to all those times before with, like, even with Blue Velvet and before that, where we talk about the beautiful plant that has the rot underneath. I don't know what my problem is with Los Angeles right now, I'm realizing, but I was going to say it's the physical manifestation of all of that. But apparently I hate LA and I didn't know it.
You can love LA and still, I think, be aware of that, as David Lynch very much is. You know, he obviously loved the city. I mean, that light that he described is what it kind of drew him to the city. And the city became his home and his muse, but it would take him nearly 3 decades to make a film set within the City of Angels. And that film was, of course, one that we talked about a couple of episodes ago, Lost Highway, a film that used the city like a mirror, reflecting its fractured identity without ever naming it. They never say LA in it, but it is clearly an LA set movie. Then, after taking a quiet detour through the Midwest with The Straight Story, Lynch came home again, and this time he created one of the definitive Los Angeles films. A movie not only set within its borders, but about the very industry that built it, which is the movies. And he placed this film along one of the most iconic stretches of pavement in American culture, Mulholland Drive. This road was named for a guy named William Mulholland, who was a ruthless civil engineer whose aqueduct systems turned Los Angeles from a desert into a booming metropolis, and in the process robbed California farmers blind in the 1920s land grab that would later inspire Chinatown. And the road carries that same tension between creation and corruption that really defines the city itself, kind of what you're talking about, Gary.
Ruthless civil engineer feels like the perfect LA job title, actually. So,
Yeah, I've been looking in the paper. I see you have a job available for ruthless civil engineer. I mean, I can grow a mustache and twirl it if you'd like.
the California water wars were legit, though.
Oh, yeah.
These guys promised everybody, oh, we're just going to take the water you're not using, and then proceeded to drain entire lakes around people. So it's the city founded by the bad guy from There Will Be Blood is what's going on here.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I drink your water. I drink it up.
Which is much healthier, honestly.
Yeah, truly,
You stay hydrated. Yeah.
Stay hydrated in this heat.
It makes more sense for the setting, actually.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And then you've got this like stretch of road that is the spine of the whole thing to market real estate, and then all these stories about it. So it's the perfect like magical tension between creation and corruption.
Yeah, and that road has long been a part of the mythology of Hollywood glamour and tragedy. If you ever heard the story, Montgomery Clift nearly died in a car crash after leaving a party at Elizabeth Taylor's house, mangled his face, had to have surgery. His life and career were never the same. It's a horrific story if you ever hear it in detail. James Dean would race his car around the curves of Mulholland Drive, tempting death. Of course, he later died in a car accident, not on Mulholland, but that is one of the locations where he was often seen drag racing, much like what we see some kids doing in this movie. It's been the backdrop for countless scandals and just as many stories, both real and cinematic. The ghosts of the industry linger around every curve, and it remains home to the living royalty of that same industry. From Marlon Brando and Jack Nicholson to Warren Beatty and Demi Moore, generations of the Hollywood elite have claimed their perch along those winding hills. And that includes David Lynch himself. His own compound, the same one that we talked about in our Lost Highway episode that you see in Lost Highway. It sits nestled in the Hollywood Hills just off of Mulholland Drive, overlooking the city that fueled his dreams and nightmares for more than half a century.
Of course, they all live up there. It's the ultimate I'm better than you. It's like they're literally looking down on everybody else in the basin. It's not a neighborhood, it's a castle moat. Joy of the peasant or traffic peasants. I'm up here thinking about art and stuff. And Lynch's compound is already a fortress. Like it has no windows or like little slot windows or whatever high up in the hills. We saw it in Lost Highway. He lives in like his own private bat cave, just overlooking the city. He calls it in one of the books, it was like a city of lethal illusions. He's literally the shadowy executive that he's satirizing half the time, except he uses his powers for espresso and to dream about dead actresses.
Well, the difference being that unlike the executives that he's satirizing, his end goal isn't to make money, it's to make art, which I think is something that was always a combative part of, because to make movies, you have to make money because they cost a lot of money, but making money back on the movie was never his priority, whereas, executives, as we will find out over the course of talking about how this movie was made, they want to make money.
I went down a rabbit hole with Mulholland Drive just because of this, just because I didn't know enough, and then the amount of duality and stuff you can read into it, you totally see how this movie ended up happening, and that everything in this movie is Mulholland Drive is the perfect name for it because of just that. Because in the 60s and 70s, it was like a dumping ground for dead bodies.
Yeah.
I think I read about 12 cold cases that are still active there or something.
Well, I mean, Mulholland Drive is you don't know until you start look at it on a map or drive it. It's like 50 miles of road. It is not like a small street. It is a 50-mile stretch that goes along the mountains that separate Los Angeles and Hollywood, with the valley on the other side of those mountains, which are where the porno industry started booming in the 70s. So it sort of separates these two very different, but obviously related aspects of the film industry.
And it's perfectly overlooked. Like you can see the Hollywood sign, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which of course was Hollywood Land originally.
Yeah, it was
which was
just a real estate development, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an advertisement for segregated housing,
Yeah.
like a development there. That basically in the Great Depression, I was reading about a 24-year-old actress who went off for her hopes and dreams, and her studio film got shut down, and she took a dive off the H.
Yeah, I think she hung herself from it, but either way, she killed herself on the Hollywood sign. Yeah.
It's like a split personality, this whole thing. It's the ghost in the machine callback. But it's soaked in mythology. And I was just, you mentioned the Clift crash. That was crazy. You got Elizabeth Taylor. That's the difference between them and us, though, people. If you wreck your car, he gets Elizabeth Taylor pulling teeth out of his throat and tongue. Right. We're lucky if we get a raccoon chewing the seatbelt off us. So that's what separates us.
Well, when he made Mulholland Drive, David Lynch wasn't making just another Hollywood story. He was making the Hollywood story. It's the story of the dream that kills the dreamer.
You got to love a road that's a multi-million-dollar real estate listing and a convenient, no questions asked, corpse disposal service. Yeah. The view is to die for and to die on. Yeah. See what I did?
Yeah. Thank you, Gary. That was very good.
David Lynch compared Hollywood to Las Vegas in one of the things I was reading too. He said, everybody thinks they're going to win big, but 99% come back with less than they arrived with.
Yeah. So this film becomes David Lynch's love letter and his warning. This is a film about the power of illusion, the fragility of identity, and the thin line between creation and self-destruction. It's a mystery, it's a love story, it's a nightmare all rolled into one, which, I mean, that sentence there describes the ultimate David Lynch movie. So buckle up as we head down that dark, winding road on the last podcast you'll ever need about David Lynch's Mulholland Drive.
What happened?
There was an accident. A car accident.
From David Lynch, the director of Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet.
Could be someone's missing.
The girl is missing.
I just came here from Deep River, Ontario, and now I'm in this dream place. I don't know who I am. That money, you don't know where it came from.
Oh, by the way, those two detectives came by again looking for you.
Someone is in trouble. Something bad is happening.
Now you got me scared.
There is no band, and yet we hear a band.
Silencio. I remember something. What is it, Rita? What is it? What do you see?
Mulholland Drive.
Mulholland Drive.
That's where I was going.
Diane, the car's waiting. You coming?
All right, folks, we're about to open the little blue box on this Tinseltown fever dream. So if you haven't seen Mulholland Drive, I don't know, keep living your life, I guess.
I think that was Todd's way of a spoiler warning, but there are definitely things you could absolutely spoil in this movie that are better seen, without knowing what's going to happen ahead of time. So definitely, if you don't want to be spoiled, go watch the movie, because we're going to be discussing it in depth, because you can't not discuss the plot of this one in depth.
They used to call it Bad Boy Drive. Did you know that?
I did not.
Really?
In like the 80s. Because they're like Brando and Nicholson and Warren Beatty and
all the bad boys living next to each other.
Yeah, Nicholson and like fuck your windshield up with a golf club. I was reading a story about that.
I think the scene where that happens in this movie is inspired by Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't even think about that. That's so weird. Roman Polanski lived there. That's no, it was actually at Nicholson's house where he became infamous.
Oh yeah. Off Mulholland became infamous.
Yeah.
That's one way of putting it. Before we move on, we want to give a quick shout out to our Cinema Shock Plus members and a big welcome to our newest supporter, Robert. That's the name he put in. I don't know his last name or an initial or anything. It's just Robert.
Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Maybe it's Bob.
Maybe.
I was gonna say,
maybe
it's De Niro.
It could be. It could be Bobby De Niro. It could be Robert Kennedy Jr.
I kind of hope it is.
Well, we have got some conspiracies to talk about on this episode that he will love. So,
this is great.
Whoever you are, Robert, we appreciate you joining Cinema Shock Plus. Robert joined at the Projectionist tier. That gets some of the extended version of this and all of our episodes dating back to the beginning of our first David Lynch series. It gets it early as well, gets all kinds of merch discounts and stuff. So we appreciate you. Thank you for helping keep the show rolling. If you want to join Robert there in Cinema Shock Plus for those early ad-free extended episodes and all kinds of other exclusive bonus content, just head to cinemashock.net/plus.
Todd, just for Robert's sake, can you tell us how many Tylenol you took after watching this movie?
It wasn't just one.
I love a topical joke.
Yeah.
David Lynch's fascination with Hollywood didn't begin with Mulholland Drive. So a couple of years before they created Twin Peaks, Lynch and Mark Frost were first brought together to collaborate on a project called Goddess, a biopic about Marilyn Monroe based on Anthony Summers' controversial book. We talked about this, way back in our Twin Peaks pilot episode. Lynch was really intrigued by Marilyn's story, but as he told Chris Rodley in Lynch on Lynch, I love the idea of this woman in trouble, but I didn't know if I liked it being a real story.
Lynch's notes on the Marilyn Monroe story were probably hilarious. I'm imagining, like, I love the tragedy. I love the paranoia, but these facts, they're just so factual.
Okay,
inconvenient.
yeah, I was wondering, like, I was like,
what if instead of the Kennedys, it's a guy named Bob that lives in a motel? No? Guess I'm out.
I bet he also loved that her hair in real life changed from auburn to blonde. I bet he really got a kick out of that.
Yeah.
But that's really it with him, I guess, is that he's not a reporter. He's just trying to translate a feeling. He wants the conspiracy and the woman in trouble, but he doesn't want answers.
Well, he's not opposed to doing a real story. He's done The Elephant Man. He did The Straight Story, both of which are sort of fairy tale versions of the real story. But Marilyn is it's such an iconic story that if you can't really fudge the facts on Marilyn the way you can on like Alvin Straight, who nobody knows who they are. You know what I mean? So I wonder if that was part of it. I mean, that Blonde movie came out. Is that what it was called? Blonde with Ana de Armas. And I know it fudged the facts from what I've heard. I haven't seen it. And people were pretty pissed off about it.
Yeah, I was thinking that, like, I mean, I can see why he's obsessed, because out of all the stories that we just talked about from LA and Mulholland and all that stuff, you can't leave out the ultimate beautiful blonde that got chewed up by the machine.
Right.
But you're right. Yeah, it's hard to avoid that. You're going to need to be a little more accurate or not play with the details so much.
Yeah.
Because I actually went down a rabbit hole of like how many movies were made about Marilyn. Now, not TV movies, not documentaries, in theater released, and I only saw 5, 2 of which were before this. And I was like, this seems like it could have just been David Lynch's take on the Marilyn Monroe story, which I guess it is. Guessing about it after the fact isn't going to really help anything, but like, I wonder what could have been if he had leaned into a more straightforward story, but like a David Lynch version of the Marilyn Monroe story.
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that it would have been interesting, but obviously there was something about it that he was like, I don't need to be the one to tell this story, which is admirable,
In one interview, he definitely says, quote, everything is about Marilyn.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So it's in all of the stuff, I guess.
I mean, there's always that duality, which obviously we will get into talking about during this, but you've got Norma Jean and Marilyn, like these two distinct sides of, in fact, there's a movie called Norma Jean and Marilyn that came out in like the mid 90s. It was, I think, a made for HBO movie where they're played by 2 different actresses. It's Ashley Judd playing Norma Jean, and then when she changes to Marilyn Monroe, it's Mira Sorvino. So they literally cast 2 different actresses to play the same person, which feels like a very Lynchian thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, the idea behind that Marilyn Monroe story, that the woman in trouble, that became one of Lynch's defining obsessions. It's in Blue Velvet with Dorothy. It's in Twin Peaks, obviously, and especially in Fire Walk with Me, which portrayed the troubled final days of Laura Palmer. And Laura Palmer, that character arc that she goes through, consciously or not, owed a lot to the same fascination that had first drawn Lynch to Marilyn Monroe.
Like I said, everything is about Marilyn Monroe. That explains why the Straight Story, we lost out on all the parts where Alvin Straight was crying about the ultimate destruction of innocence on the Hollywood blacklist. If it doesn't involve a shattered blonde, Lynch don't want that shit.
Alvin did that while eating hot dogs, while eating wieners.
Oh, was that a blowjob joke?
Yeah, a little bit. It was a commentary, and yes,
and also he does eat wieners.
Yeah, he eats wieners.
There's a lot of wieners in that.
And again, to be fair, if you don't have a fascination with troubled women, that's a Hollywood resume non-starter. Right. So you can't do that. And nobody does beautiful woman having the worst day of her life better than David Lynch. So
that is 100% true.
Yeah.
By the way, that book Goddess, I found a quote from it that's from like the foreword or the introduction to the book. It's by a guy named Norman Rosen, who was a poet. He was a friend of Marilyn Monroe's. And this quote from him says, I just found this fascinating. It says, Hollywood, the dream factory, had created a dream girl. Could she awaken to reality? And what was the reality? Was there a life for her outside the dream? And that, I read that and I was like, that sounds like Mulholland Drive, doesn't it? Like that sounds like a description of Mulholland Drive. I feel like that quote had to be circling around somewhere in Lynch's subconscious, maybe, because obviously he's read the book. This movie feels like Lynch returning to that question and finally answering it. I mean, answering it in his own way. He's giving us this sort of collision between the dream and the woman who gets crushed by it. So it does feel like a response to the question that this was positing in the book, which when I found that quote, it sort of blew my mind, honestly.
It kind of makes you wonder, like, how much they kept bumping into with Goddess that prevented it from really happening, and how much of that is laid out with Justin Theroux in this movie, or some similarities at least.
Yeah, I mean, Lynch had his reservations about it, but if you remember back when we talked about it in that Twin Peaks episode, I think the real nail in its coffin was that they wrote a script, him and Frost, and then the executives who had hired them to write it read the script, and they're like, we can't put in all this stuff about the Kennedys. Are you guys insane? And they're like, it's in the fucking book that you've asked us to adapt. Like, did you not read it?
Yeah.
Like, listen, we'll greenlight Twin Peaks where a high school girl gets sawed in half and possessed by a demon. The line is drawn firmly, though, at the Kennedys. Not at terrifying, incestuous evil. Nope. Like, that's fine, but our moral compass has its limits, okay?
A lot of Kennedy references in this episode already.
Yeah.
Right.
Makes me want to do all my stuff with a really bad, like,
Boston accent.
Boston accent, yeah.
Please. You know what, Todd? If it helps you enjoy
Well,
David
hello
Lynch
and
more,
welcome to Cinema Shock, the podcast celebrating the stories behind your favorite cult and genre films.
Well, back when Twin Peaks was still on the air, Lynch and Frost briefly toyed with the idea of a spinoff to the show. This was around, they were doing this in like season 2, so this would have coincided with season 3 of the show, which of course never happened. But they were toying around with this idea of a spinoff of Twin Peaks that would follow Audrey Horne, Sherilyn Fenn's character, as she moved away from Twin Peaks and to Hollywood to pursue an acting career. And the title that they had in mind for that series was Mulholland Drive. Now, it never got past the idea stage, but the concept obviously stuck in Lynch's head. A few years later, he revisited it for a bit with his Fire Walk with Me co-writer, Robert Ingalls, this time as a feature that was removed from Twin Peaks. It was all new characters and everything because it had been a few years at that point. And they didn't get very far into that before Lynch's focus shifted to Lost Highway.
So they were going to take Audrey Horne, the one character in Twin Peaks who was still kind of having fun, and they were going to send her to LA to, quote, make it. That would have ended great. So, hey, remember that quirky jazz-loving girl that ties the cherry stems with her tongue? Yeah, she's huffing paint behind a dumpster at Winky's now.
That's the true Hollywood story, though.
They did her a favor by blowing her up in that fucking bank. I read an interview with Mark Frost on IndieWire where he talks a little about this and says that, like, Sherilyn was down for it. And they named it Mulholland Drive because that's where Frost was living at the time. And they thought it was a cool name, basically. So lest you think it was some mystical, artsy reveal.
I mean, it's such an iconic road. Like, even people who don't live in LA or know LA, they've heard of Mulholland Drive. It's like Sunset Boulevard. It's like there are several, or Hollywood Boulevard. There are roads in LA that, like, instantly you think movies, you think the filmmaking business, you think Hollywood.
I think there's even something to be said about the drive from within to be a part of this industry, that being the Mulholland Drive. But
profound.
I like that.
Profound.
Yeah.
Almost like I'm a writer.
I didn't even think of that. That's good. My favorite quote, Todd, you'll probably appreciate this too. My favorite quote from that Mark Frost interview, though, is, quote, "She was ambitious and we probably could have built a show around her. I don't know exactly how it went from there to a pilot script without her. Maybe because Twin Peaks had crashed and burned after 2 seasons. There wasn't much appetite for spinning off a series from it. I wasn't involved. And frankly, I needed a break from working with Lynch at that point."
Frankly, not all the cherry pie in the world could make me work with David Lynch again.
That sounds more like
Sherilyn Fenn was down for it, but let's be honest, Sherilyn Fenn was down for a lot of things.
You're turning into Kodos from Treehouse of Horror. Well, in the late 90s, shortly after he had made Lost Highway, Lynch's longtime agent, Tony Krantz, this is the same guy who helped broker the original Twin Peaks deal with ABC, he suggested a return to television. He's like, let's try this again, buddy. And he even suggested reusing that evocative title, Mulholland Drive. He's like, you got a great title, and obviously that gives you a location. We've made another show that's named after a location. Like, let's just keep this ball rolling and see if we can strike gold twice. Now, despite Lynch's strained history with ABC, Krantz did manage to convince him to give the network another try. And Lynch went along because, as he later admitted, he's a sucker for a continuing story. That's a direct quote from Lynch. I'm a sucker for a continuing story. That's what drew him to television in the first place. This idea of being able to write a mystery without closure, questions that never needed answers, at least not until ABC forced your hand and made you do it halfway through season 2.
I too am a sucker for a paycheck that never ends. So, but the balls on this guy Krantz. After On the Air, I was reading about Lynch painting a plywood sign that says, "I will never work in television again."
Yeah, he was pretty jaded by it.
But Krantz was all in. Like he told Movie Line he taped the name Mulholland Drive to his fridge, and he just kept walking by it every day and was like, "We're just gonna keep pushing for this." It like kept him encouraged to make it a thing. And so, but to come to Lynch over dinner and pitch this after what happened with Twin Peaks and On the Air, it feels like asking a guy who's missing one arm from petting a tiger, "Hey, come over here. You want to pet this other tiger?" It's totally different tiger.
The thing is, it's not even a totally different tiger. It's still ABC. That's the weird thing. It's like, he's not like, let's go pitch this to NBC or Fox or CBS. Let's go back to ABC. the place that screwed us twice already.
Exactly. And maybe he knew. Maybe he just understood David couldn't resist mystery or like telling a mystery or whatever. You know, because it's just for somebody who hasn't heard all this already, that just to be, he was always consistent about revealing the killer in Twin Peaks was what killed it, quote, dead as a doornail.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a big fan of what he calls deepening the mystery. Basically, as we keep hitting at, he thinks that any unresolved mystery creates this infinite, beautiful world for the audience to live in, whereas an answer is a brick wall that you're running into.
Yeah, it's definitive.
Yeah, so he's elaborated in interviews that TV's potential for deep story appeals because you can go so deep and open the world so beautifully, is how he said it. But it takes time, and mystery is one of the most beautiful things, he says. So he's a big fan of not spoon feeding and just letting things play out and reveal themselves over time. So here he is. He's gung-ho for essentially pitching ABC on another infinite world. Anyway, Lynch, what I'm saying is Lynch loves mystery without closure. The same way a network executive hates mystery without closure. It's the one thing they can't sell ads against. Tune in next week for Mulholland Drive. Will we answer any questions? Absolutely not. Will you be more confused? 100%. Don't miss it. Brought to you by Doritos.
That's the difference, though, between like 90s, even late 90s television versus now. Is like, now that would easily sell, because I mean that's the kind of stuff we're seeing, like True Detective and I mean, True Detective does come to a conclusion, but there are a lot of unanswered questions, like in that first season. So like now with prestige television, if you want to call it, like on HBO and places like that, a mystery without end would absolutely be a selling point to a lot of these people. Like, let's give it 5 seasons and then we'll solve it at the end. But between now and then, let's just go along for the ride. But by this time, when they were pitching this, ABC was under new leadership, so that was, I guess, a little promising. Lynch was hopeful things would maybe go a little differently this time with this new regime. He was invited to pitch the show to the ABC executives in August of 1997, and despite their history, the network was eager to work with Lynch. After all, by now he was a brand name, and everyone in the industry had realized that Twin Peaks, even in its failure, had changed television. It paved the way for shows like The X-Files and Northern Exposure.
I gotta wonder though, being burned so bad by ABC, there had to be some reluctance, like just
yeah. There was definitely he had to be convinced. I mean, he had to be convinced. But again, the promise of being able to tell this ongoing mystery is what really drew him. But he was definitely wary about it. Absolutely.
Yeah. He seemed prickly, or like he was, he had concerns. Mm-hmm. And don't forget too, you mentioned those shows like The Sopranos launched in January of '99. Mm-hmm. So although the world had not, you wouldn't have seen that yet at this point. But there must have been a feel that things thanks to cable, were starting to shift.
Yeah,
And
we weren't
so-
quite there yet, but we were definitely on our way.
Yeah, and maybe she saw it. Just talking about
Jamie Tarsus.
Yeah, Tarsus.
Yeah,
right.
she was the head of ABC Entertainment at the time.
And she's the same woman that helped develop like Friends and Frasier, but she's under a lot of pressure at this time because she's having kind of a brutal time at ABC. That they were in like third place at the time, and she was under siege from the press a lot.
Well, she's also she's the youngest executive to ever hold that position at ABC, so that alone creates a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah, and she's desperate for something high level, like prestige, like you said, and something to get people talking. And taking a gamble on David Lynch as a brand was not just on a whim. I'm sure this is her taking a big swing,
Swinging for the fences.
Yeah. To use a quote from Tommy Boy,
please, anytime you get a chance.
yeah. I meant to mention this while we were talking about Tony Krantz, but like he sold a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves with this getting Lynch to go back to ABC, because I don't see how that the most uneasy of sells. That is the hardest sell, I would think, in this whole thing, is to get Lynch to be like, okay, even if, with new leadership at ABC, getting Lynch, who was burned so bad by them, to go back again, like, geez, talk about an uphill battle.
I know, but he managed to do it.
If we're going to keep using like analogies or whatever, maybe he's just working so hard to get something made and he has this idea he wants to get out there, but he's like a dog that the chocolate is right there and he knows it's going to fuck him up if he eats it, but he's still got to eat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the outline that Lynch presented during this pitch meeting described what would basically become the opening of the Mulholland Drive pilot and later the film itself. In this pitch, he says, headlights flash across the famous Mulholland Drive street sign. A limousine pulls up to the side of the road, and the men inside turn towards the sultry brunette in the back seat. The driver pulls a gun, and then the scene erupts into chaos. Teenagers speeding around the bend slam into the limo. The woman survives, emerging from the wreck and stumbling towards the lights of Hollywood. She enters an unlocked apartment, her memory gone, and then the next morning a young, aspiring actress arrives, and when she finds a stranger naked in her shower, she decides to help her uncover her identity. That's an intriguing pitch.
I love how David Lynch pitches think. Like, all these suits want from you, Dave, is just conventional, easily relatable characters, clear outcomes. Think you can handle that? Got it. Can you imagine them listening to this? Okay, Dave, what have you got? All right, limo crash, bang, woman, amnesia, shower, blonde shows up. She's cool with it. Mystery. That's it. That's it. Oh, okay, we're gonna buy that. We're gonna buy that, Dave.
Well, that's it did hook them, because you listen to that pitch, and that's a pretty intriguing premise to start a TV show. Like you describe that as your opening scene. You're like, yeah, I want to see where this is going to go. And it worked, and the executives were hooked. It had mystery, sex, danger, everything that had made Twin Peaks a phenomenon. So the network committed $7 million for a 2-hour pilot. Now, I will say, when he described this pitch, he did tell the executives, they're like, what happens next? He's like, you got to buy the pitch to find out. So it worked, though. They committed $7 million to it, which was an enormous budget at that time. Most pilots were like $2 million around this time. So he's getting more than triple the normal budget for this. Now,
which, I mean, if you're an exec and you're hearing it for the first time and you're thinking about a TV series, then yeah, you've got an entire series of questions already. Who is she? Who tried to kill her? Why is the car targeted? Who's Diane? What's in the bag? What's the key open?
Yeah.
It's like this black box of stuff that you could just keep pulling out of. So $7 million is crazy, though, too, that they went all in on that, because that's in 98, it's got to be like feature film money.
Well, and it's also they're greenlighting a 2-hour pilot where most pilots were an hour at the time, so they're not only committing 3 times the budget, but twice the airtime for them. Now, of the budget of that $7 million, $4.5 million came from ABC themselves. The remaining $2.5 million came from Touchstone Pictures, which is another branch of ABC, who is owned by Disney as well, but it's just their film. It's like their adult film line. I don't know if it's still around anymore, but Roger Rabbit and stuff that was not necessarily kiddie fare is what they released through Touchstone. Now, the catch here, of course, is that Lynch would need to shoot some additional material so that the pilot could later be expanded into a feature film for overseas release. That's why Touchstone's putting in the money. This is the same thing that they had done with Twin Peaks, where they wanted him to shoot additional footage so that when they release it in Europe, they can release it as a film with an ending.
He supposedly grudgingly accepted this, and then he went and talked to a cowboy. No, I feel like they were still a little scared of him. They're like, all right, listen, Lynch, just fucking film an ending.
Yeah.
Okay. Just in case, Dave. And he's like, okay, bucko, but it's going to be a weird fucking stage show where a woman collapses, the music keeps playing, and it was all an illusion. David, what the fuck are you talking about? Silencio!
So in January of 1998, a few months later, Lynch turned in a 92-page script that expanded on that premise that he had pitched. Like Twin Peaks, it revolved around a mystery. This time, it's this amnesiac woman named Rita, or who calls herself Rita, and a naive newcomer named Betty, unraveling the puzzle of identity in Hollywood's dreamscape. But Lynch had learned from his previous experience. Once you solve a mystery, the air goes out of the balloon. That's what happened with Twin Peaks. So this time when he was writing the script, he planted multiple narrative engines to keep the story moving no matter what. So that even if the mystery of who Rita is gets solved, there's plenty of other things in place to keep the mystery going.
Steve Tao was one of the executives on ABC at this time, and he, in one of the interviews I was reading, said there's a very fine balance between intriguing people and confusing people. I think part of the tension comes in. The studio is involved, and we're going to see that more and more. Mm-hmm. But I mean, even right at this point, Bloomberg and Tarsus, who run this whole thing, they get about like 20 people from the network and bring them in, and they have these notes meetings is what they call them. Mm-hmm. And while they're getting ready to put their stamp on this show, these people are there to analyze everything from the characters' morals to their hairstyles. And because most executives believe that television shows, unlike movies, which people actively seek out, TV shows are watched passively, and the audience is usually tired and fickle. And so stories need to move quickly, clearly. Characters' problems need to engender immediate sympathy. And so Jamie Tarsus, in this thing I was reading, said the secret is to have a character who is very relatable, whom you root for. And then the rest is just how you dress it up. Will it catch your eye, basically?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Betty fits the bill for that type of character, especially early on in the pilot. So within just a few days of this getting greenlit by ABC, the press was already calling this Twin Peaks 2. Like, it was all over the trades. Mm-hmm. Although ABC was quick to add that this time Lynch had it all mapped out, which he did not.
Yeah. Don't do that.
I do have it all mapped out, but I draw some weird fucking maps, Buster.
So with Mulholland Drive officially greenlit, David Lynch turned his attention to casting. And true to form, he was not chasing movie stars. He wanted faces that he could mold, people that he could discover, actors who, like the world that they were about to enter, felt full of mystery and possibility. And maybe most importantly, he needed people who could commit for the long haul. Like people who could commit to multiple seasons, multiple years of their life to this show. And so, like Twin Peaks before it, Mulholland Drive would be built around relative unknowns. As Betty, the wide-eyed ingenue chasing Hollywood dreams, Lynch cast Naomi Watts, an Australian actor who had spent nearly a decade at this point waiting for her big break. Born in Shoreham, England, and raised in Australia, Watts first drew notice in 1991's Flirting, which is this coming-of-age film. It co-stars Nicole Kidman, who is actually Naomi Watts' best friend. Thandie Newton co-stars in it with her. And the film won the Australian Film Institute's award for Best Film. And on the heels of its success, Watts packed up for Los Angeles, chasing really the same dream that her character does in Mulholland Drive.
The connection to Nicole Kidman, I thought, was really nice. They're apparently like very, very good friends, and she's pretty key to Naomi Watts' story. They were high school friends in Australia, and by the late 90s, though, Kidman is one of the biggest stars in the world, and Watts is her struggling friend who can't even keep health insurance. So Watts has said that Kidman was huge in support for her, constantly telling her, listen, you just need to hang on. It just takes one film. You're going to find one director, and it's going to change everything. It really kind of just highlights like the near miss way Hollywood works, but at least she had that encouragement about it. I know at this time she's getting ready to give it all up. She had been trying so hard and just not able to grasp it yet. And then she probably wouldn't even have gotten this far if not for people like Kidman.
Yeah, I mean, Kidman hooked her up with, I think, her agent. When she came to LA, she was getting auditions and stuff. She just wasn't landing anything. So Hollywood didn't exactly roll out the red carpet for her. She spent most of the 90s bouncing around a bunch of small parts, a fleeting role in Joe Dante's Matinee, supporting turn in Tank Girl, even a lead role in Children of the Corn 4, The Gathering. But that's not exactly a resume that screams the next big thing.
She was one yes away from Leprechaun in Space. Let's face it. So this is, and it wasn't just a feeling for her. I mean, this is what she's being told. Like, Watts has been very open about the fact that agents and casting directors in the 90s are all telling her to her face that she's too old, not sexy enough to be a leading lady. 30 is the cliff. So the role of Betty, the bright-eyed 20-something hopeful, was a part that in Hollywood terms would seem like it's she's a decade too late for that one, buddy. So, you know, her desperation at this time is more Diane than Betty.
Yeah.
I went on our good buddy Kurt Manchester. I went on his podcast to discuss comic book movies, and the subject of Tank Girl came up. And I gotta say, if you haven't watched Tank Girl in a while, pop it in. It's better than you remember.
I really do love Tank Girl, but at the time, like, it was a flop, and the reviews were not great. Reviews were pretty mixed to negative, and it didn't make any money. So it did, even though she is essentially the second lead. I mean, it's Lori Petty, and I guess you could say Malcolm McDowell because he's the bad guy. But Naomi Watts is like Tank Girl's sidekick. It's like the Robin to her Batman, sort of. Yeah. And she's very good in it, but because the movie didn't do anything, it didn't help her career at all.
It made $6 million off a $25 million budget.
Not great.
Yeah, not great at all.
So by the late 90s, Watts was kind of just ready to throw in the towel. She was ready to quit. She had lost her apartment, her health insurance, and whatever faith that she had that things might turn around for her. She was days away from moving back to Australia when she got a call from Lynch's casting director, Joanna Ray. You see, she had caught David Lynch's eye. Lynch has a pretty intuitive casting process. Basically, like, Joanna Ray brings him a bunch of headshots. He goes through this stack of headshots. He picks out the ones that just feel right to him for whatever role he's looking to cast. And then he would meet with the actor. No audition, no reading, just conversation, just getting to know them and feeling whether they felt like they belong in this role.
His method is just having a precognitive vision. Joanna, give me this woman. Why, David? What's her resume? Doesn't matter. Her headshot, it vibrates with the soul of 1,000 dying swans. She was in Tank Girl. Perfect.
Do you think he saw Tank Girl?
I doubt he did. I doubt he did. But I will say, I was going to say, Joanna Ray has said that the process is almost psychic. Like, when you read her talk about it, he doesn't like read resumes at all. He just flips through 8x10s until one stops him somewhere. So he'll stare at the photo and say he's getting a feeling, and he believes the headshot is a portal, like he's looking for an inner self, something complex in their eyes. He's not even looking for an actor as much as he's looking for the soul. And so he's looking for someone who has access to the kinds of like stuff he likes to write about, basically.
Well, he also trusts Joanna Ray as a casting director, so he doesn't have to ask her, hey, can they act? He trusts that if Joanna Ray says that they can act, then they can act. So he's not worried about that. So he knows that the people that, when he gets a stack of headshots from her, they've got her seal of approval. And Joanna Ray had been sending Naomi Watts on all kinds of like casting calls. She knew Naomi Watts had the goods. It's just that the places that she was being sent, that Joanna Ray was casting for, the directors weren't picking her for whatever reason. But she knew that she was good.
She said that she would get like all these people asking her, like, how'd you discover Naomi Watts? And she's like, oh, she's just been around for forever, and she shows up for everything. And she's just there, just nobody's hiring her. But she's like, even looking back and you look at her auditions, you're like, why? Yeah. Why is nobody casting this girl?
So when she arrived at Lynch's for this this meet and greet, she was fresh off of a red-eye flight from New York, no makeup, wearing jeans and a T-shirt. And Lynch didn't recognize her because she looked nothing like her headshot. So he was a little confused. But even so, the meeting went really well. I think he actually asked her to come back like the next day, but made up to look like her headshot, which more fit the role of Betty. But when they met, like, he loved her energy and she got the part. And it was the role that would redefine her career. And she got it at the very moment that she was ready to quit everything.
Yeah, she was dejected by the time that she got to him. And that's kind of the punchline for the whole thing, because from the way it sounds like, she got the part because, first of all, she started off as a mess. He was expecting glamorous Betty from the headshot, but in walked the
Diane.
Flustered, stressed out Diane. Yeah. And he got to see both sides of her within the first 30 seconds, basically.
Yeah.
So by coming straight from the airport with no facade at all, she proved she had this. And apparently her attitude was even this way, just like, but she proved that she had this vulnerability and like this unpolished, like, nature about her. So it's like the perfect, like, anti-audition. But yeah, he did, ask her to come back more glammed up, is the way they put it. And he offered her the part like 2 weeks later. And Lynch says in interviews, like, he saw someone that he felt had a tremendous talent and someone who had a beautiful soul and intelligence, possibilities for lots of different roles. She was a beautiful, full package. She says that she had been to auditions. Like the last one she had been to, I think she described, was like, she was there and the director's like asking her to read lines or whatever, and she's reading and looks up and sees that the director's like not even looking at her, like,
yeah,
just
not even paying attention,
eyes closed, just not even paying attention. Yeah. So luckily for her, again, besides, this is like the circumstance of a lot of different things working in your favor. But I mean, not that she's not working hard, but the fact that like you've got like encouraging friends, or like Joanna Ray, who's like promoting you and pushing you to come in for this one, do this one.
And then when she met with Lynch, though, like, she talks about how like he like made eye contact the whole time. Like he was legit. He would ask me questions and he was legitimately like interested in my answer.
Yeah. And it wasn't just about the movie either. They were having like a chat about family and just talking to her about who she is, and all from a headshot that he sees. And then it just seems wildly impractical, this whole process. But then he immediately launches an A-list superstar. Yeah. So you can't argue with the results, I guess.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, she was a star after this. She just actually this week, as we're recording this, she just got her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Yeah. And she broke into tears talking about Joanna Ray and David Lynch, and basically saying like, I would not have had a career if not for the two of them. And now we're 25 years later and she's getting her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I think that's pretty rad.
Yeah.
Well, and I talked about the other day how The Ringer had their greatest roles of the 21st century, and number one is this role, her in this role. ABC, for the record, from everything I saw, like, hated her. They said she was too all shucks and an Okie from Muskogee, and they thought she was too old, too innocent. And then she goes on to give the greatest performance of the 21st century, apparently, and becomes an Oscar nominee. And so ABC executives can go fuck themselves, I guess, in this case. But to their credit, they were right that they would not understand David Lynch's work.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, for the role of Rita, the dark-haired stranger who stumbles into Betty's apartment and her life, Lynch casts Laura Elena Haring, a Mexican-born former Miss USA, who, to put it mildly, had lived a very different life from Watts. Haring came from a wealthy family, and for a time she was even married to the great-great-grandson of German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. She even kept her countess title after they got divorced, which meant that when she pivoted to acting, she was doing so as literal European nobility, which is, so this is not your usual rags to riches Hollywood story.
No,
fancy. And we should note she was the first Hispanic woman to ever win the Miss USA
title. She was. Yep. She became, I think it was Miss San Antonio, I believe is where it was, and then Miss Texas, and then Miss USA, the first Hispanic woman to ever hold the title.
Wow.
Yeah, so she'd already kind of gotten this massive mainstream American dream moment well before David Lynch, like you said, unlike Naomi Watts. But her resume is like a fucking Mad Lib. Like, hello, I am a countess. I was also Miss USA. I was in Silent Night, Deadly Night 3.
She also got shot in the head when she was 12 years old.
Jesus.
What? She got a stray bullet from a drive-by shooting hit her in the head when she was 12 years old. So, eerily
if you're
similar
be
to
the
her
grand
character.
slam of celebrity, then that's the way to do it.
Yeah, her acting career began in 1987 with a TV movie called The Alamo, 13 Days to Glory, in which she played Raul Julia's wife. Or Raul Julia's character's wife, I guess is more accurate.
So the bullet to the head that was prepped for that role. Got it.
2 years after that, like you mentioned, Gary, she showed up in a movie we've talked about here on the podcast, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 3, Better Watch Out, aka the worst of the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies, which is saying something, which coincidentally co-starred Eric DeRay, who plays Leo Johnson in Twin Peaks. And if you remember from our series, he is also the son of Lynch's casting director, Joanna Ray. Isn't that weird?
All comes full circle.
Well, I know what I'm going to do this Christmas. I'm going to revisit this now that I know these people.
I know we should. It's been a while. I mean, I haven't watched it since we did that series. That was like 3 years ago, I think. Anyway, when Lynch saw Haring's headshot, he reportedly became like instantly fixated. So much so that he refused to audition anybody else. It's like the scene in the movie. He's like, this is the girl. I don't want to see another headshot. This is it. He just felt something from her. And then she gets called in for her audition, and on her way to meet him. Now, keep in mind, she hasn't read a script or anything. She has no idea what's going to happen to her character or anything about it at all. And she's driving to David Lynch's house off of Mulholland Drive, and she gets into a car accident, a fender bender, which is a strangely prophetic accident, given that her very first scene in the movie involves a car crash, one that's a little worse, I guess, than the one that she got in.
From interviews with her, like she didn't even miss the meeting or anything. She got in the fender bender, was completely rattled and shaken up, and went to the meeting anyway. She walked in, apologizes for being flustered, tells Lynch that she'd been in a car wreck. Lynch apparently leaned forward, suddenly very interested, and said, "You were in a car wreck?
You're not gonna fucking believe this."
He loved that she had walked into the room carrying that exact story, I guess, and the same disoriented, I guess probably that same energy that he thought the character would need. So another perfect anti-audition. So she got the part because she was a mess. It feels like a pattern is emerging. You want a part in Mulholland Drive? You have to show up to the audition experiencing life-threatening trauma. Watts looked like she'd been sleeping in a bus station. Haring literally gets in a car crash. Thoreau's going to look like he got in a bar fight when we talk about him. Lynch's casting office is just a revolving door of people having the worst day of their lives. Oh, you're prepared? You memorized the lines? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. So for the role of Adam Kesher, the movie director who serves as the series' third major figure, Lynch cast Justin Theroux. At the time, he was really only known for some small roles, supporting roles in like I Shot Andy Warhol, little indie movies like that. I think that's his first credit, actually. He has a small part in Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion, a memorable, but small role in American Psycho. So he hadn't really quite hit it at this point.
Personally, like every time I see Justin Theroux, I'm like, hey, it's the DJ from Zoolander.
Which came out the same year as Mulholland Drive. So what a double feature there.
I mean, I don't want to spoil further viewing, but
turns out it's the same character.
Yeah. Wow.
It's like he transforms into the bum behind Winkies between the two movies.
Oh man, it's Justin Theroux came in from I hinted at this, but he came in, he was on a long sleepless flight from New York to get to this audition, and he's dressed in all black. He has like messed up hair.
Sounds like you're describing the character.
Yeah, well,
or David Lynch.
So he said when he walked in, David Lynch was like, perfect. and then it was just like he thought I was like the tortured genius fighting the man, and I'm like, buddy, I'm fighting for dehydration right now. But he said he sits down and Lynch just starts talking to him, but not even about the script. Again, he says they talked for an hour about Edgar Allan Poe. Nice. How his father used to travel, paranoia, and the feeling of being watched. He said he left that saying, Well, I just had a nice chat with David Lynch. I 100% did not get that job. But he said he got a call a little bit later that Lynch loved him and wanted him for Adam. He said that Lynch was looking for something specific and this guy had it, then used some of what Thoreau was projecting at that moment for the character.
Nice.
Yeah. It's kind of like David Lynch is this bridge troll that just waits for you to say the magic words of "fuck my life," and then he leans out and goes, "You're hired."
We don't
bring that with you to the set.
Even after all of these movies, I'll never 100% like think I understand David Lynch. I mean, even reading stories with like Haring where she talks about like she says like when I was Rita, he would just give me direction like walk like a broken doll, or when I was Camilla, he would say walk like a kitty cat. And she's like, but somehow like in the moment,
it makes sense.
I knew exactly what he meant.
Yeah.
And so like when it was the kitty cat, she said it, she was like, I need to be like slow moving and feminine and drive men crazy, but just like kind of slink around.
Yeah. So the rest of the supporting cast here was rounded out with a mix of character actors and familiar faces. You've got Dan Hedaya, James Karen from Return of the Living Dead. He shows up briefly. Melissa George and future Lost alums Patrick Fischler and Mark Pellegrino. Veteran MGM musical star Ann Miller appears as Coco, Betty's landlady. This was like her first movie in 20 years, I think, and ended up being her final film role. Brent Briscoe and Robert Forster show up as detectives Domgard and McKnight, a pairing that was intended as a recurring thread had Mulholland Drive continued as a series. But their single scene in the film, which is at the very beginning, remains one of the pilot's most tantalizing glimpses of what might have been.
Ann Miller, like the story there too, just feels like pure Lynch. Like Ann Miller, like you said, I mean, she's 75 years old. She hasn't made a movie in 40 years. And Joanna Ray finds her, and she supposedly shows up to the meeting in full like old school MGM glamour, like red lipstick and big hair and heels, and Lynch gets obsessed with her, and because he loves that classic Hollywood era, and so now he's got this like living icon right in front of him of that time, and it feels like that her casting is a thematic choice in that way too. Like she is the old Hollywood that Betty's renting a room from, and she's the last vestige of this bright, optimistic dream of what that is. And the fact that her name is Coco, like Coco Chanel, is perfect. But she's the past. And I don't know. I just I thought that was really neat, like a neat way to play that. Can you imagine being her though? Like you're a legend and you tap dance with Gene Kelley and you show up to meet this nice, quirky guy who likes coffee, and the next thing you know, you're in a pilot where a monster lives behind a diner and a tiny man in a foam body is running a studio. And, she's just like, in my day, the director just yelled at you. It was much simpler. But, and Robert Forster, I did want to say too. I mean, here's another example, like maybe kind of an opposite example, like, because he's in the middle of this is 99, right around 99 or close to it. So he's like hitting that career resurrection from like Jackie Brown or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
this is like 97. So this is right after Jackie Brown. Yeah. After Jackie Brown comes out.
So a lot like Naomi Watts, he's like the struggling hopeful or something, like he's hoping for something, or he's not the struggling hopeful is what I mean to say. And then he's not the ghost of glamour past, but he's like this comeback guy.
He's a comeback kid. Yeah. He's having a bit of a resurgence.
Yeah, he's been through the grinder already for like 30 years, and he's coming out the other side of it. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch the original pilot. I did watch it, and there is an additional scene with these two detectives that gets cut out of the film, but it's like them meeting at the police station and talking about the case a little bit. And as we'll discuss here in a bit, once Lynch began to reshape Mulholland Drive as a feature film, there were some scenes and supporting characters that he just had to drop or cut down significantly. And I think seeing that they had more of a role in the pilot made me think a little bit more about it. And I think his decision to cut them out of the rest of the movie is a sort of hilarious to me, because the detectives, when they get introduced very early on, after they're looking at the car crash and they're trying to, you think they're going to go on this investigation to find out who this missing woman was, because they find enough to know that there was another person that was in the car who's no longer there. And then that is sort of it's a cliche. It's like a cop movie cliche. It's something you see in a million movies. So it almost feels like Lynch deciding to never show them again or reference the investigation at all, really.
Yeah.
Feels kind of like him telling the audience, like, it's like him smashing the TV at the beginning of Fire Walk with Me. Him going, this is not going to go the way that you think.
I don't remember us talking about this, but we've talked about it a lot, so maybe we did. But he was originally the choice to play Sheriff Harry S. Truman
He was.
in Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he even got cast, but had to drop out.
Yeah.
And so I forgot all about that if we talked about it, but Lynch did not. And so, this is him coming back around on this guy.
Yeah.
So...
And this is a weird aside and doesn't really mean anything, I don't think. But I did see somewhere when I was reading that Coco, the Ann Miller's character, her name is Coco Lenoir, is her full name. Lenoir means the nut. We see her eating like pecans and stuff a lot, but also Coco La Nut literally means her name is coconut.
That's awesome.
And I like to think that Lynch just threw that little joke in there because he found it funny.
I can see that happening.
Like a Lynchian dad joke.
Yep. That's exactly it.
I'm trying to picture like Robert Forster playing Harry Truman, and then Coop's like, Harry, I had a dream about a giant. He's just like, are you done? Because there's a body on the beach, you weirdo.
Well, can I tell you?
And stop bringing me donuts. God damn it.
Can I tell you, Gary, that Robert Forster does show up in Twin Peaks?
Oh, does he?
Yep. he will show up in Twin Peaks. I'm not going to tell you as who or when, but yep, you will see him in another David Lynch feature down the line.
Nice.
So Lynch also populated the margins of this film with some familiar collaborators from his creative circle. Twin Peaks' Michael J. Anderson, that's the little guy from The Red Room, the man from another place, The Arm. He portrays Mr. Roke, a silent, paralyzed studio boss whose presence in the film, like, we never see him outside of his chair or outside of that room. So he kind of hovers somewhere between human and machine. He's a very mysterious character, very strange character. And to achieve this effect, Anderson stood on the seat of a wheelchair, encased in this enormous prosthetic suit. Enormous for him. It's like the size of a regular guy, with foam legs and silicone arm extensions, with his head emerging from the top of the rigid torso. So you've got like his small head on a normal sized man's body. It's a very bizarre visual.
It's like when the baby head came out of
an Eraserhead.
An Eraserhead.
Yeah, exactly. I thought the same thing. Or the Goombas from Mario.
Or those two, I forgot about that. Do you think they were referencing Eraserhead when they did that?
You know what? Can you imagine I was going to say, can you imagine a Mario movie directed by David Lynch? But honestly, the one that we got is about it's pretty close. And in fact, before he started working on Mulholland Drive, I read, speaking of things that other David Lynch movies that never were, he got offered American Beauty. He got offered to direct that, which ironically, went on to Kevin Spacey won Best Actor and beat Richard Farnsworth for The Straight Story in that. And then he got offered The Ring.
Really?
Nice.
Yeah. And this is obviously, this is before Naomi Watts was attached to it, because this is before anyone knew who she was really. But he got offered The Ring, turned it down. It gets made comes out a year after Mulholland Drive, at which point Naomi Watts is a star and she gets cast in The Ring. So it's a weird kind of like connected serendipity. It's really, really neat to me.
Wow.
Also, I cannot imagine a version of The Ring directed by David Lynch. I think I would like it a lot. But I cannot imagine what he would have done to it.
Yeah, that would have been wild.
Yeah.
Dennis Hopper was in the Super Mario Brothers movie, though. So, they could have worked together.
That's true.
Once again.
That is true.
So is Mojo Nixon. So we could have seen that parent.
Yeah, hey, David Lynch liked casting his musicians, He likes casting his musicians. He's got one in this movie, which I don't know if we'll have to talk about. Billy Ray Cyrus.
Oh yeah, Billy.
In this movie. I read that Lynch one place I read said that he had seen Billy Ray Cyrus was trying to kind of pivot into acting, because he was always kind of a one-hit wonder with Achy Breaky Heart. He was trying to pivot his career into acting. He was doing a few things, mostly TV movies. One thing I read said that Lynch had just seen him in a role, like in one of these TV movies or whatever, like a Lifetime movie or something, and thought that he would be perfect for Gene Clean, that he was just like perfect for this kind of goofy goober of a dude. Another thing I read, I think this was actually an interview with Lynch. I think it was in Lynch on Lynch. He said, I was listening to Billy Ray Cyrus and got this idea that this guy should be Gene Clean. And the thought of David Lynch with his headphones on, just sitting in his house up on Mulholland Drive, listening to Achy Breaky Heart, fills me with such joy.
Yeah.
Mary, get in here. Have you heard this achy breaky? It's a pop.
And apparently, like, Billy Ray Cyrus got the call and he came in to meet David Lynch, or he came in, to do the movie, and he didn't know what the character was or anything. David Lynch just told him to show up in jeans and a tank top. Like, we'll go from there. And he becomes Gene, the pool boy.
I cannot imagine that David Lynch would have looked at him and thought he looked like a goofy goober of a guy. So that can't be it.
No, that can't possibly be it.
Speaking of looking like, the visual going back to Michael Anderson is that the head of the studio, but he's only a head. He's like this little tiny paralyzed, disembodied voice in a dark room, just pulling the strings for the entire studio or whatever. Like it's this is how David Lynch views his metaphor for the corporate side of Hollywood, I think.
It just should have gone the extra mile and put his head in a jar, like sitting on a desk.
You also got here producer Monty Montgomery. He had co-produced Wild at Heart and Fire Walk with Me. We talked about him a little bit back in our Wild at Heart episode. He also co-directed a movie called The Loveless with Willem Dafoe, which is he co-directed it with Catherine Bigelow, stars Willem Dafoe. It's a very kind of Lynchian movie, like set in the 50s. It's really good. But that's the only movie he ever directed. He was primarily a producer. Definitely not an actor, turns out. But he gets cast as the mysterious cowboy, this messenger who appears, speaks in riddles, and then vanishes. Now, Montgomery, as I said, was not an actor. He knew he wasn't an actor. He was a little bit nervous about this. And David Lynch cast him. David Lynch insisted on putting him in the role, basically. Like, he was dictating the script to his assistant. And as he was talking about the cowboy, as this idea, this character of the cowboy came to him, he just heard Monty Montgomery's voice in his head, and it stuck with him, and he couldn't get it out of his head. So he just insisted that Monty's got to be the cowboy. And he told Monty Montgomery this. Monty Montgomery's like, I'm not an actor. I cannot do that. I will be so nervous. I can't be in front of the cameras. And then a few weeks later, David Lynch is like, all right, this is the schedule. We got you coming in this day. This is the call time. He's like, David, I'm not doing this. And finally, like, David Lynch just kept ignoring that Monty Montgomery was saying no to this until, like, he finally just like, you know what? Okay, I'll do it. So he gets there and he doesn't really know his lines. He looks over the script, but when they say action, he just like gets like 2 lines in and just freezes, like does not remember anything. And it kept happening to a point where they're like, all right, what are we going to do about this? This is not working. So Justin Theroux taped his lines. They're shooting over the shoulder, Justin Theroux, when they're shooting Monty Montgomery. Justin Theroux had his lines, Monty Montgomery's lines, taped to his chest so that he could read them. And even when they got done filming it, Justin Theroux, I watched this interview with him where he said he went to David Lynch and he said, I don't think we got it. Like Monty's giving a really wooden performance. Like, I think we need to do this over again. And David Lynch is just like, nope, it's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. Like, he knew what he wanted out of it. It's just a very bizarre, and it makes for a very bizarre scene, honestly. I mean, one of the most memorable scenes in the movie. It's one of the scenes that people always think about when they think about Mulholland Drive. And then we've also got Lynch's longtime composer, Angelo Badalamenti, who we all love. His work has defined the sound of Lynch's movies since Blue Velvet. But here, he briefly steps in front of the camera as one of the intimidating film financiers.
It's not totally clear. Maybe you found out why he cast Angelo here, but
I hunted and I could not find why. I think maybe he just had the idea to put Angelo in a movie because they were buddies. That's all. I have no idea. I could not find anywhere why he decided to cast him.
I did find one place where like Angelo did tell a story that about the scene, but he did say, well, he just said Lynch called him and said, Angelo, I want you to play a gangster, and you're a real connoisseur of coffee. And so he said he was terrified. He's just like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
But he said in the scene, he has to spit out the espresso and call it dog shit.
Yeah.
And the prop department, not knowing any better, had made, because of the scene, a genuinely disgusting pot of espresso. And so when Badalamenti drank it, that look of disgust is 100% real.
Maybe they knew because he wasn't an actor that he needed the motivation.
Yeah, maybe. He said it was the worst coffee he'd ever had in his life. And Lynch just yelled, cut! Angelo, that was beautiful!
That's great. Production on Mulholland Drive began in February of 1998 in Los Angeles on the Paramount lot. And Lynch brought along with him several longtime collaborators. He had his cinematographer, Peter Deming, who had done Lost Highway, production designer Jack Fisk, and editor-producer Mary Sweeney. And this crew, they never really treated this project like it was just a television pilot. As Deming later said, as far as they were concerned, they weren't making television. They were making a David Lynch movie.
And these names are why this looks like it does. Peter Deming is, it's like his shadow guy. He shot Lost Highway. He's the one who knows how to make a fucking lamp in the corner look like a menace. He creates
which he does in this several times, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So he creates all these like signature, what I would think would be considered like Lynchian darkness now, not just black, but like rich, deep, textured black, where things are like hiding in it somewhere. And then Jack Fisk, who is even more critical. He's Lynch's oldest friend. We've talked about him a bunch, all the way back to like high school. So he's the guy who builds the physical world that you're looking at. He finds the locations and these places that in this movie like feel unstuck in time, like Aunt Ruth's apartment. Just like this perfect little faded like 40s Hollywood or something.
It feels so old Hollywood. It's really perfect.
Yeah. It's like they have ghosts already before Lynch even gets started. Like he knows how to like make this happen. And Deming is being, I feel like, literal about that schedule. I mean, a 90-minute TV pilot, from everything I can find, you may know more about this, but in that time would have been shot pretty fast, like 15, 18 days if they're lucky.
I think they had a little longer on this. I saw somewhere that they shot for about 6 weeks.
Well, no, that's what I mean though, is that like he was being literal when he says they weren't making television. They're making a David Lynch movie.
Yeah, they had the time that you would normally have on a movie, not on a TV show.
Yeah, so that's like a feature film schedule, period. And then they're burning through that $7 million budget with the patience of a normal art film. You know, it's not like you're just making an ABC show. So, which is, I mean, this is not how normal network television gets made. And you got to love the guts because you got all this money and they all just mutually agree to not make a TV show.
Yeah,
it's like,
pretty much.
It's like, hey, should we speed this up? We only got one shot today. Like, no, David's trying to get the vibe right on that lamp. So just tell Disney to send more money.
Well, I think that sensibility showed immediately when they started filming this, like the opening crash that, you know, the moment that kind of sets everything in motion, the car crash that Rita is in, or Camille, whatever you want to call her, at the beginning. Rather than staging it like a standard, TV stunt, like a smaller stunt, Lynch had the limousine mounted on a weighted catapult that weighed like 6 tons or something ridiculous. And it basically used that as a counterweight to launch these cars and do an impact with terrifying precision. And like, it looks like it's a rough car crash. You never question that 2 people died in this car crash.
Yeah. Lynch and his crew spent 3 days rigging a 6,000-pound weight on a crane just to make the crash look dreamlike. That was the instruction. Make it seem like a dream by making it as real as fucking possible.
Hey, a nightmare is still a dream, right?
Yeah. Before the cameras even rolled, like he had given Laura Herring a single note for this this part of the movie too, that same one that he had given Sherilyn Fenn after her own wreck in Wild at Heart. Imagine yourself as a broken porcelain doll.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of skipping in, but it's all part of the same scene. But for that scene, she was like dazed and bleeding and walking barefoot down that hill, but in the silk dress, and that note seems like the only thing that, like, it's what keeps it from being like a slasher movie cliche to like her being like this. She's vulnerable, but she's not a victim.
It's a really interesting piece of direction from Lynch, because when you watch the movie knowing that she was given that direction, you can absolutely like see that. You can see that that's like how she translated that direction. It's pretty wild. I mean, and if you compare it to Sherilyn Fenn in Wild at Heart, that same sort of dazed look in their face, but that broken beauty. Yeah. It really is. It really does. It sounds like on paper a weird piece of direction, but seeing it in practice, you're like, yeah, I see what she did with that. I see what both of them did with that. It's pretty cool.
Talking about the car crash and like making fun of it being dreamlike, like you kind of hit on this, but what I was thinking in my head is that it's interesting. He has these moments, and maybe the broken doll kind of thing is the metaphor. Like all of his stuff is very dreamy, but there is this very, like, he's committed to this like visceral, physical reality that happens too. That's like very, abrasive. Just like, so not as dreamy. It's just, I don't know. It's interesting to see how he plays with that. I think I read this somewhere, so if I'm stealing it, I don't remember where, but maybe. But just talking about how the brutality of some of what he's doing is to help make sure the audience immediately accepts the reality of the dream.
Right.
And I just thought that was kind of an interesting way of putting it.
Yeah. Well, as filming went on, Lynch kept most of the show's long-term plot under wraps, even from his closest collaborators. But those that were on the crew who had worked with him in the past kind of had a feeling that there was a twist coming. Like they would ask him, hey, something bad's going to happen, right? And Lynch would just take a sip of coffee, drag off his cigarette, and just kind of smile without saying a word. But he wasn't letting them into his head, but they felt like there was something coming.
It's interesting. Like everybody seems on board with David Lynch for this, but you can definitely tell, like from the stories and the way things go, that you start to get why he's working with the people that he's working with, like in his crew, because that collaboration that they have with each other, even when you're talking about like the plot and everything, the actors still sometimes, especially these actors, because they haven't been through this before, and it's like the crew trusts him implicitly. They know they're making, like you said, like Deming said, a David Lynch movie,
right?
And regardless of what else happens, we're making a David Lynch movie right now, and so they recognize the auteur part of it, I guess, and they don't seem to question anything. They're just like, all right, this is what he wants, let's do that. And so the actors, even though they're going with it, they're still kind of like, wow, what's happening?
Yeah, I think it was a process for the actors where they might not have understood at first what he was going for, but learned to trust his vision as they went on. Because like Naomi Watts, when she first started, she wasn't sure what to make of her direction. Like Lynch had asked her to play Betty with this almost cartoonish sincerity, wide-eyed, gee whiz, glowing, like very kind of goofy, like she'd stepped out of a toothpaste commercial from 1952. But she slowly started to realize, like as filming went on, that Lynch knew something she didn't about her character. She kind of started to realize that this performance he was asking her to give was a setup, that Betty needed to feel fake or like a put on, that she needed to feel phony.
And from everything you read about David Lynch, he's not going to offer you any reassurance about that part, except that you're doing the right thing.
Right.
Naomi Watts probably early on is having like an existential crisis. Like, what am I doing, David? My career is over. And Lynch is just like, she's like, I feel like I'm cardboard right now. And he's like, yeah, cardboard. That's great. And he's just like smoking a cigarette. Just like, now be happier with it. Happier than God. Go do something else. That's great. She's like, what the fuck? But yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, and she was 100% right, technically. Like, that's because that is what David Lynch is directing. Betty isn't a real person. She's this movie obsessed failed actress. And, she's this, I don't know, Nancy Drew archetype.
Yeah, she's basically built from cliches. Like she is like that's what the parts that make up Betty are these cliches that Diane has seen in, the movies that she grew up watching.
Mm-hmm.
Embody all the fake parts of Hollywood right now. Yeah, and I mean that's the whole setup is she's worried about. But yeah, she would say like in certain things like he would she'd be worried that she was going too big or her eyes are too wide. And David Lynch would give her direction like, no, go bigger. It's like you just tasted ice cream for the first time.
Now that's a bit of direction I understand. Like that's
I imagine he just yells that at people in the diner. Just,
oh yeah.
Eat it like you're doing it for the first time. What the fuck is Jesus.
So while Lynch's cast and crew trusted this process or learned to trust this process, the network, ABC, they were not quite as confident. During some pre-production meetings, ABC executives grilled him with questions like, well, how are these characters connected? Who is Rita really? How is her relationship with Betty going to develop? And Lynch assured them that the answers would come in due time and that more mysteries would spring from those revelations. But the executives didn't like that answer. Like they wanted to know.
That's the exact moment that they realized they paid $7 million to receive a copy of David Lynch's Subconscious. That's what happened there. They were getting panicked about the types of mysteries too. Like they were okay with like A plot, like who is Rita, but they're baffled by B plots. Like it's why are these guys at Winkies talking about dreams and monsters, and who are they? Are they main characters? What does this have to do with anything? So, for Lynch, the only dread was, or I guess for Lynch, the dread was in the plot, and for the executives, it was like, we're spending $7 million for this. And it's like 5 minutes of dead air on this scene. Like, what is happening right now?
They also weren't thrilled with some of his other like creative choices. Like they thought Watts, who was 30 years old at the time, and Laura Elena Herring, who was 34, they thought that they were too old for their parts. And then when the dailies came in, they started watching them. They complained that the pacing was too slow. They complained about a shot of a dog turd that we see in the movie. They're like, you can't show dog turds on TV. They even suggested a smoking policy. They wanted only like villains or negatively portrayed people to smoke on screen, ideally while hacking, to show the dangers of smoking. That was an actual note that he received on this.
On the age thing, that's like the most incredible unself-aware note of all time to me. Like the entire story is like playing up things like this ageism that you're doing right now. And the 30-year-old woman is over. Like she's done. She's too old. And you're being exactly what the film's villain is.
Yeah. They even asked, the studio asked Laura Herring to lose weight. And Lynch is like, don't lose a pound. Like he's like, you're perfect. Do not listen to them. Do not lose a pound. But that's insane. Like if you look at her and think that she's out of shape, you're like, what are these guys smoking?
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of which, like, I mean, David Lynch, everybody in David Lynch movie smokes. And that's noir. That's atmosphere. That's just how it's, I don't know. Having like negative characters cough is like it's from an after school special.
Yeah, what is this, a PSA or something? Like
right. You're trying to like put Touched by an Angel in here, and this is the guy who made Blue Velvet.
Right. It's almost as if they were shocked to discover that when you hire David Lynch to make a TV show, you end up with a David Lynch TV show.
Yeah.
They're like, what? Wait, this isn't what we meant. Like, who the fuck did you think you were hiring?
Yeah.
So Lynch, of course, he was frustrated that they were judging these dailies, this unscored, unedited raw footage, because this is not the finished product. And we know how important sound design and music are to his work, that you can't judge it solely based on just film that just got developed, which is essentially what they're doing.
I also almost forgot to mention this, but one of my favorite parts of the story there is that when ABC asked for the limits on smoking, did you see he like tells Justin Theroux in one scene to take a huge drag of the cigarette? And it's like, and I mean, take it like, I fucking love this cigarette. It's just, I love that rebel attitude there. Anyway, but yeah, the ABC thing, they scheduled this thing at 6 a.m. and it's like people standing around and just like doing other shit, and they're playing the unfinished version.
Yeah, well, I know when they ran the pilot, like the first cut of the pilot, it was like an executive watched it at like 6 a.m. standing up, holding his coffee before work. Like not really
that's
paying
what
attention.
I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Not the dailies, but like the actual final pilot or the first cut of the pilot. Which is like not the way to like pay attention to it. Like sit down and pay attention to it. If you're going to make a make or break decision on whether or not you decide to air this show, like give it the attention that it deserves. Like it's sort of infuriating.
I don't know, honestly, if you could watch David Lynch's 2-hour pilot about a amnesiac lesbian film noir mystery thing standing up at 6 a.m., you deserve to hate it. I feel like that's, but I mean, this feels like the core of his conflict all the time, like that his world is built on like vibe and
atmosphere.
And then not to mention the fact that I think I even mentioned this in like Lost Highway, but he's famously told Angelo Badalamenti that score is 70% of the movie. He relies on this like that hum that you get underneath things, bass heavy, like dread. He uses sound. I mean, this is why he mixes the sound for his shit half the time, it seems like. Is like he relies on that a lot to kind of get the audience to feel how he wants them to feel. And so when you're watching like silent, unscored footage, and then you can say something like, oh, this is too slow. Of course it is too slow.
It's not the
nothing's
final
been
product.
added yet. So it's like you're looking at the stuff to make a meal and saying that the meal sucks.
Yeah, right.
But,
yeah.
You know.
And that first cut of the pilot that he turned in ran a little over 2 hours. It's like 2 hours and 5 minutes. It's a little long because if it's a 2-hour time frame that ABC's giving him, that's really a 90-minute pilot because you have to have 30 minutes for commercials.
Right.
He was sort of hoping that ABC might let him air the full version in a longer time slot, but instead, the network responded with a 30-point memo of suggested cuts and tweaks.
30 points is not... That's a manifesto. Like that's the declaration of like, we don't get this.
Yeah.
Point 1, stop being David Lynch. Point 2, we're serious. Point 3, the monster behind the diner. Does he have to be scary? Can he be like a helpful monster? Point 4, don't be David Lynch anymore.
Yeah, and now he claims to have never read that memo in full, but Mary Sweeney certainly did. She's the editor on this. And despite his frustration, both Lynch and Sweeney they really wanted to keep this project alive. So the two of them hunkered down in the edit bay, trimming entire scenes and cutting it down to 88 minutes, a version that Lynch later described as a garbage compactor thing, a butcher job.
Oof.
Yeah, he declared it a nightmare. He was I think that even in some places he seemed to admit that he thought, yeah, maybe it's a little slow in like certain places or something, but he didn't have time to.
Yeah, he didn't have the time given to finesse it. Yeah, they didn't have the
Yeah.
time to like really tweak and finesse it the way that he would have wanted to help with the pacing.
Yeah, and then that 88-minute cut's like not just tighter, it's faster, and then you're shaving seconds off like every shot, and you're robbing the scenes of like the kind of pacing that David Lynch does, like that builds the character, like I don't know. It's just, it's more abrupt and less dreamlike.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, I watched some of it, like what I could, but yeah, it's just, I don't know. It felt like it missed the mood
I agree. I think the pilot, like you can find it out there. It's floating out on the internet. It's a really shitty copy because it's like a copy of a VHS, and it looks like shit, but you can still get the idea of what they would have seen at the time. And it's not good. Like, it is slow. The pacing is off. The music's not quite right. There are scenes like the scene with Angelo Badalamenti in the boardroom, that big, like, crazy music that pops into the movie, like as he gets pissed off about the coffee, and Dan Hedaya starts screaming, and like it's very intense in the movie. That music's not in the pilot, so the scene comes off very differently. It's one of the most memorable scenes in the film. In the pilot, it's just like it feels like out of place. And the pilot is structured weird. It's like the pacing is odd. There are scenes in it that aren't in the film, like the other Robert Forster scene that I mentioned, and a couple other scenes that are like extended or shortened in a lot of cases. Like a lot of scenes that are in the movie get cut down for the pilot and shortened, and so the rhythm of it is just off. It just doesn't feel right, and it does feel, even though it is technically shorter, it feels slower. It's very strange. Now, one of the biggest casualties from those cuts is the Winky's Diner scene. That was filmed for the pilot. It got cut out. That's that terrifying monologue that Patrick Fischler gives about the nightmare behind the restaurant. And this sequence, which, as we mentioned before, features Bonnie Aarons, who is famously in a lot of horror movies, but the nun in the Conjuring movies. She plays the figure in the alley, and it was later restored for the feature version and would become really one of the most iconic moments of Lynch's career. It's one of those scenes from a David Lynch movie. It's like there are scenes from David Lynch movies that you would put on a like a reel of all of his greatest moments, like the In Dream sequence from Blue Velvet, things like that. Like, there are those moments that you just remember from his films, and I feel like this is one. It's actually one of many from this film, but this is definitely one that you see a lot. It is as confounding as it is memorable. It shows up on a lot of those lists of the scariest movie scenes of all time. Even though Mulholland Drive isn't really a horror movie, you still see it lumped in with horror movie scenes on those like clip shows. From a filmmaking standpoint, the scene is really, it's a masterclass in tension and mood. Like, nobody can quite weaponize camera movement and sound design the way that Lynch can. And that scene, the way that like they slowly move towards that concrete barrier where the dumpster is, the way that he cuts back and forth, the music, nobody does that the way Lynch does. This scene is proof of that. But then the question remains, what does it all mean in the long run? So would you guys, because you don't, it's never explained in the movie. A lot of things aren't explained in this movie, but this seems like such a pivotal moment that I feel like there's some sort of meaning that can be extracted from it, or it wouldn't be there.
It feels like it's a way to kind of, I don't know, maybe you've got a different read on it to me, like trying to figure it out this time. It feels like there's a way for it to be like another story to the audience that this is a dream, but also real. Like it's reality manifesting itself, or the dream manifesting into reality, basically, or something.
Yeah, I mean, the scene, it's sort of the convergence of the dream and the real world, because he's talking about a dream only to see it come to life, even though, and we haven't gotten into this yet, but one of the primary interpretations of the film is that the first 2/3 or so are a dream or a hallucination that Naomi Watts' character is having. So this is part of that dream, but it's also showing a guy talking about a dream. So you've got this like mix, this dream meeting reality, all in multiple different ways, all within one scene.
I feel like Dan, the guy who's telling the story, because this is such a Hollywood story, I feel like he is either a writer or a director who is talking to their therapist about their hopes, dreams, the project that they are working on, and behind the scenes, behind the Winkies, behind, Winkies, being a metaphor for people who are like in the know, they kind of give you that nudge and that little wink. They take that project, they take that dream, and they turn it into this nightmare.
Okay. That's an interesting interpretation.
So like a perversion of your art, this thing that you built up in your head to be this great thing, once it's gone through the Hollywood machine, it comes out not looking anything like what you had initially planned. and being something that you hate, that gives you nightmares, that causes you to faint when you see it up close.
I also think that by inserting this scene so early in the film, because it's like it comes in like 10 minutes into the movie, I think it's really early on. I think Lynch is also signaling to the audience that they should question the events that they see in the rest of the film, which are also going to blur those lines between fantasy and reality. So this is sort of him signaling like not everything is as it seems. But also, like, if you think about this being part of a dream, then why is Diane dreaming this? Because she doesn't know these guys. I mean, she sees the guy in that diner later on. She sees Dan in the same place that Dan saw his therapist, standing at the counter, like in the exact spot. And so you can understand why they are, I guess, the image of him is in her subconscious because she was at that diner getting the key from the hitman, which is in turn connected to her guilt over hiring the hitman to kill her girlfriend or her ex. So maybe she sees that guy and, automatically, like, her subconscious is linking him to that key because she made eye contact with him, right?
Yeah.
And you don't really understand a lot of that until the end of the film when all has kind of been revealed. But taken in that context, I think the bum, which is what the creature behind the dumpster is credited as in the end credits, I think the bum could represent Diane's feelings of guilt. So like Dan sees this creature and he passes out or dies. He might be dead. He might be having a heart attack in that scene. We never really know. And then of course later in the film, Diane, who is racked with guilt of her own, ends up killing herself. You could do a Google search right now. What does that scene mean? And you're going to come up with 10 different interpretations. So, not to say one's right or one's wrong. That's my personal one. I think that the creature, the bum, represents Diane's guilt. But that's what's so fascinating about it. And I think you can see why it would get cut from the pilot, I guess, if there's no way to follow up on that. Yeah. But I think it's absolutely essential to unraveling the mystery of the film.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at too, that it feels like it's the part that kind of spells it out for you, or not, obviously not spells it out. He doesn't do that.
But in retrospect, you think back on it and you see that there were clues in place.
Right.
Like Dan says, he's the one who's doing it. And then at the end, when you see the bum again, the bum is sort of like this almost puppet master type character who seems to have some control over things in Diane's life. So there are multiple ways to read that, but it's a very, powerful scene, both from a filmmaking standpoint and in just like it makes you wonder, how is it all connected? And there's not really a right or wrong answer to that, which is kind of what one of the fun things about this movie to me. So while all of this kind of back and forth that David Lynch is having with the network is going on about the pilot, he'd already shifted his focus to the straight story, which he filmed a few months after wrapping the Mulholland Drive pilot. So Mulholland Drive shoots in like February, straight story shoots in September, so just a few months later. So over the course of the summer, he falls in love with the script that Mary Sweeney had written, and they move on to the straight story. And then in May of 1999, as the straight story was preparing to premiere at the Cannes Film Festival, Lynch is getting ready to leave for the airport. And Lynch on Lynch, he actually says, I was taking a leak when the phone rang, getting ready to leave for the airport to fly to France. Phone rings and it's ABC calling to deliver the news they were passing on Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, he says it was one of the most surreal and darkly funny moments of his career, that he's
taking a piss.
He's like in the middle of literally packing my bags to go to Cannes, and it's the world's most high art film festival to premiere The Straight Story, a beautiful G-rated Disney movie that everybody loves. And he's not saying that, but this is what he's doing. And as he's doing that, the other side of Disney calls to kill his other darker project.
Because remember, The Straight Story was distributed by Disney, who owns ABC.
Yep. Right. And so it's like the encapsulation of like his entire career. It's like it's art versus commerce, which is and it's happening real time in his bathroom. But but he does say in interviews that like he found the network execs, like, their thinking process to be, I believe you said it was very foreign, but driven by fear of not making money. And so he doesn't understand that. Like, he doesn't understand to make your decisions just about that and not about anything else. It feels like he was having a little Dune experience here. Honestly.
Yeah, some flashbacks, some PTSD from Dune. Yeah,
Yeah,
you might be right.
Our friend Max Avery, who wrote that Dune book, and we've had him on the show. Like, he had an article I read about the cappuccino or the espresso scene.
Oh, nice.
And comparing it to, was David Lynch making a commentary about Dune at that time? Basically, that scene was kind of similar to something he had talked about.
I've also heard comparisons between the Italian mobsters who are, Dan Hedaya and Angelo Badalamenti play and Dino De Laurentiis.
Yeah, he brings that up.
So,
yep.
Yeah, you can definitely see some parallels there. So this first version of the show that he had sent to ABC, after editing it and everything, the 88-minute version that they got, it has a similar tone to early Twin Peaks. Like we said, it's not quite as finesse because he didn't have the time to do so, but it does have some of those Lynchian qualities to it. It's heightened, it's melodramatic, it's knowingly earnest at times, especially with the Betty character. It's occasionally zany, like there are funny moments. And it's just a bit off in that perfect Lynchian way. Basically, it's exactly what you would expect if you actually knew what you were getting into when you hired David Lynch to make a TV show for you.
Yeah.
But ABC apparently did not understand that. And by the summer of 1999, Mulholland Drive was, for all intents and purposes, dead. And that, fellas, that's where we will leave off for now. Because while ABC thought Mulholland Drive was dead, David Lynch had other ideas. And in our next episode, we will see how he brought it back to life, reshaping it into the feature film that would become one of the most acclaimed works of his entire career. So that's it. That's this episode. If you like what we do here on Cinema Shock and want even more, as always, check out Cinema Shock Plus. Members get early access to extended episodes, exclusive bonus content, including our Fire Shock With Me series, where we watch and dissect every episode of the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks. If you want to join us and join Robert, who is our latest member, you can join for as little as $3 a month at cinemashock.net/plus. I think that's all we got for this week, unless you fellas have anything to add on.
Nope. I'm good.
All right, cool.
Todd's good. I'm good.
All right.
Todd's good. I'm good.
Then I'm good. So in that case, do you want to tell people where you can be found on the internet? You want to do that?
Yeah, sure. You should follow me on the internet. Maybe I'll post something. I am at, this is Gary Horn.
I am at Mr. Todd A. Davis.
And you can find me at Justin_Bishop, and the show is at cinemashock.net, cinema_shock, all that stuff. Join us on Discord, rate, review, all the good stuff that helps us get in front of other people. And until next time,
may the wings of liberty never lose a feather.
And be excellent to each other.
Johnny has the keys.
Is it a blue key?
You'll have to find out in the next episode.
Oh, it's going to make me buy the pilot before I find out the answers.